You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey Sam, how you doing?
Good, very good. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, you've got some great new ideas, and I thought getting them on the podcast would make a lot of sense.
Let's start out with the nonprofit that you actually helped us get off the ground, which is probabilitymanagement.org. And we've had wonderful support over the years from some big organizations and from some little organizations like the Computer Law Group and Foundation for Creativity and Dispute Resolution and so on. So you were right in there at the beginning. And so it's easy to explain what we do. The hard part is getting anyone to understand it. And but I will explain it today, so you will understand it. And in effect, we have created what amounts to the Hindu Arabic numerals of uncertainty. And that probably doesn't help you much, but we were co-founded in 2013 with the help of Harry Markowitz, Nobel laureate in economics, and you and I were down there.
I remember I was there.
Harry offered
10 years ago.
Exactly. He offered us a little room in his private offices. The room comfortably held 8, and I think we had 12 in there. It was absolutely packed.
In San Diego. It was a sunny San Diego day. Yes, I remember.
I've got the photograph of us all from that period. Right. At any rate, so I want to thank other people for what I'm about to discuss here. We're going to be talking about climate change.
Okay.
And so since that time, we have had loyal supporters who have gone off and carried the torch. One of those is Shane Kavanaugh of the Government Finance Officers Association, and he zoomed into that first meeting. So I want to thank a bunch of people here. GFOA, they are a nonprofit comprising 23,000 members who are mostly CFOs of municipalities. And probability management, I better define that. Probability management means, and you can look it up in Wikipedia, storing uncertainty as auditable data. Okay, that didn't mean anything either, did it? Just a minute. Let me try again. Some of your viewers have heard of Monte Carlo simulation.
Right.
Where if you want to estimate the chances of something, you run a computer program and you try thousands and thousands of different random things, and you measure how often something happened. If you're not familiar with Monte Carlo simulation, are you familiar with the idea of shaking a ladder before you climb on it to paint the side of your house?
Right.
That's what Monte Carlo is. Bombarding things with random inputs in a computer program. Probability management stores the chances in data. It embeds the Monte Carlo in data. And that is a phenomenal difference.
Yeah, I mean, the three things, just to be clear, the three things that you're taking advantage of. Number one, personal computers have become as powerful as mainframe computers. Number two, spreadsheets, application software has become as, if not more powerful than mainframe software was years ago. And then number three, you're bringing to the table the way you combine that hardware and software with extensions to produce new ways of looking at probability management.
It's almost simpler than that in a way. So when you're talking about extensions, you're talking about maybe add-ins for Excel. No. Pure Excel will run this by itself at this point.
Okay.
The first thing we brought was standardization. So the first way we did this had already been done in financial engineering and insurance. But it had always been used in siloed applications. So the first thing we did, and that really started down there in Harry Markowitz's office, 10 years ago, is it's a little bit like the guy in Ireland in the 1820s who said, you've got 2-foot gauge railroad tracks going down to the coal mine and 3-foot gauge tracks going to the lumber yard and 4-foot tracks going to the grain elevator, did it occur to you that if you made the tracks all the same size, you could get from anywhere to anywhere else?
Right. And
what a concept.
And the same thing is now happening with the Tesla EV charging plug. It's become the standard plug because people were getting confused. Could I charge here? Could I charge there? Now it's just one standard plug. It's really smart, right?
Of course. And let's raise another theme that will appear tonight, which is the interplay between open public standards and free enterprise that takes advantage of them.
Right.
And of course, you and I are old enough to remember Digital Equipment Corporation. At roughly the time the IBM PC came out with its little, floppy disks. Well, that's something you stuck in the computer to get your data in and out, right? Digital Equipment jumped on the same bang and said, oh yeah, but we're going to use a completely different format. So you won't be able to go between our computer and theirs. Yeah, that's why they're no longer around.
Right.
Or can you imagine the great robber baron, Leland Stanford, who invented Stanford and invented the Southern Pacific Railway? Oh, no, we'll make our tracks 4 feet, 3 inches instead of 5 inches, so no one else will be able to use our tracks. No. And the most modern example of this, and I think it's really important to keep in mind, is how ChatGPT offers some stuff like open, and yet they're also driving industry, and they have a commercial arm.
Right.
PropertyManagement.org is not planning to have a commercial arm.
Okay.
But if people are not able to use our stuff to make a bunch of money, then we have failed. Right. I am a child of the University of Chicago. I believe in free enterprise. If you have something valuable, it's gonna bring value to the economy, and that should make someone rich at least. Okay, I want to thank some other people here though. GFOA really kicked this off in a beautiful way, and as you're going to see, I want to thank Aon. Well, Aon and First Street, which is a nonprofit focused on climate change, and Vibrant Planet. Let me zoom in on these guys so you can see them. First Street and Risk Factor, they are in the climate change business. They're not for profits, public benefit corporations, and Vibrant Planet and Pyrologics. So we have gotten people to start using our railroad gauge, but what this is really a pitch for is extending the gauge to really focus on climate change, climate risk, which we have not in the past, and it has some properties of its own that we need to address.
Right. But that's a big step forward, because so many people are pouring so much dollars and attention, but they're not doing it in what you might call the more systematic way that I think you're going to tell us about, right?
Why do we devote ourselves to something that is so hard to explain? Here's an example that many of us have seen. The statistician who drowns in the river, it is on average 3 feet deep. And I just want to point out how this goes down, that the boss says, how deep is the river? Their assistant says, it varies. The boss says, give me a number, damn it. And they say, well, if you need a number on average, it's 3 feet. Okay, so the rest is history. Now, let me tell you that averages do work in some situations. But let me show you how stupid they are in other situations. So, classic uncertainty, rolling a die. It's all in here. If you understand this thing, you understand uncertainty. Can you imagine? The boss says, Jack, what's the number going to be when you roll the die? You say, I don't know. It's uncertain. The boss says, give me a number, damn it. Well, then do you hold up an average die with it's flat? It's got 3.5 dots. Are you kidding me? Let's get ready to go to Las Vegas. We need to practice playing craps. don't practice with these. That's how ridiculous it is.
Right.
So I'm going to show you something that happens here now. But averages do one thing correctly. They are additive. Well, that's kind of a PTSD-inducing word. No, what it means is if I had 100 identical houses, they're in town A, okay? They're all identical to that house. Right. Each one has one chance in 100 burning down every year. And all we have to do to get the average risk for the whole town is multiply 100 times the 5,000, and the average risk is truly $500,000, right? And that is true. It is the average. Okay. Now, to see how brain dead this is, that's town A. Let me introduce you to town B.
Stay tuned for part
Town
2
B
of this episode of the Valley
also
Current.
has 100 houses. And each house has one chance in 100 of burning down every year. And each house has a $500,000 value. Well, that's it. Town B also has a total annual average risk of $500,000. Oh, I forgot to tell you one thing, which you will not see if you look at the average, that in town B, once every 100 years, all 100 houses burn down. And the risk is the same.
Right.
To quote Lewis Black again, are you shitting me again?
Right. And that happened in San Francisco in the great San Francisco fires, right?
There are so many places where climate risk is like this, and it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Like with flood risk, yes, right. The whole town is at one sea level, so many feet above sea level, and one house floods, they all flood, right? Fire is extremely different, and you have to model it correctly. Mm-hmm. Now, believe me, I have to quickly say, do not blame the fire scientists. Mm-hmm. They are getting this right. What's happening is when they communicate it to the outside world, some bozo says, give me a number. Right. A number is not going to do it. And briefly, what the nonprofit didn't figure out how to do. We standardized how to do. People have been doing stuff like it. You just roll the dice 10,000 times and store them in a column of Excel. Right. That's kind of the super simple version. The more complicated version is mathematically elegant and took incredible people like build it and they will come, and these smart mathematicians come wandering into the cornfield, and so wonderful, wonderful stuff happened thereafter. But just store thousands of dice. Computers are big. Okay. The model is interactive. Now, listen, you remember that consulting gig we did with the Royal Dutch Shell. Man, that was like 25 years ago. Where we had the very top management of Shell clicking on an interactive model. I mean, you could call it gamification. Right. But I call it something else. I say that it connects the seat of the intellect to the seat of the pants, and I call that limbic analytics. Mm-hmm. It gets your limbic system involved in an analytical process. And really, Daniel Kahneman talks about system 1 and system 2. Right. Nowhere, system 1 is, like what I call the seat of the pants. Rough and ready, makes decisions like that, boom, boom, boom. System 2 is very analytical, takes a long time. System 1 doesn't have time to wait for it. But Kahneman does not address connecting the two. And the way you connect them is through the limbic system, because system 1 is basically the limbic system, right? Okay.
Wait, you could say, let me just interject, you could say here that Sam Bankman-Fried was operating almost always in system 1 thinking, reacting, I got to keep trading, wasn't thinking at all about system 2, which is what happens when you have that black swan event that changes everything. And that's what
Yeah.
the guy that was basically the youngest billionaire under 30 years old is now sitting in jail trading apparently dried fish for haircuts in the news.
Yeah. I read that today. Yeah. So, let's hear it for modeling. Okay. The famous British statistician George Bach said, all models are wrong. Some models are useful.
Mm-hmm.
And they're useful not in giving you the right answer, perhaps, but giving you the right question.
Right.
It goes back to ladder shakes,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say, oh, no, you can't model uncertainty. That's too uncertain. Yes, you can.
Right.
Unless you're not shaking your ladder. And then other people say, oh, you wouldn't know what assumptions to put in. Garbage in, garbage out. To those people, I say, when you shake a ladder, that's garbage going in. That's not the right forces. Are you going to stop shaking ladders now?
What I like to say to people, when you're riding a bike on a bike lane in a busy 2-lane highway or 2-lane roadway, and you see roadkill on the side of the road, that is a signal about what the risk is and what the P times L equation, the hand formula, means when cars do get flat tires, do skid out of control, and they whack bicycles all the time, even when there's a bike lane.
Exactly.
So look at that roadkill, it's an omen. It tells you what you need to know.
So I do have a sequitur for roadkill.
Mm-hmm.
I love the metaphor, by the way.
Right.
But here's my sequitur. This is my favorite. Why did the chicken cross the road joke? Okay. So Why did the chicken cross the road? To prove to the possum that it could actually be done. Okay, so let's go back to this was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the beginning. Okay, so today, these rapidly emerging climate risks are screwing up the insurance markets.
In a big way.
So we had this discussion this morning.
Right.
I take you back to the simple thought of manila rope, but we do not have tensile strength meters or yardsticks. And nice piece of rope you have there, Jack, I'll give you a chicken for it. And you say, no, I want a pig. And we arm wrestle and we settle on for 3 ducks or something, right? Mm-hmm. You get yardsticks, you get tensile strength meters, you have a vibrant free market, free economy in rope.
Right.
You go to the Soviet Union and it's all corrupt and they replace the hemp with corn tassels or something. And when you're hanging from the side of the building, it breaks and you get killed. But in free economies where you're, you got the tensile strength meters, you got the yardsticks. Okay. So interestingly, an acquaintance of mine, Myron Scholes, we taught together at the University of Chicago.
Right.
He invented the Black-Scholes options equation. I'll never forget how uninterested I was in this subject at the time.
Yeah.
Years later, I thought, oh my God. I think any applied mathematician worth their salt must have Black-Scholes equation envy. And this is what the Black-Scholes equation was about. Options go back to the Greeks.
Mm-hmm.
For the Black-Scholes equation, nice option you have there, Jack. I'll give you a chicken for it. And you say, no, I want a pig. And we arm wrestle for a while. We settle on 3 ducks. It was not understood theoretically what an option price should really be. And this is very important in the context of climate change. Mm-hmm. Because one way to view options is as insurance.
Right.
And so, but let's look at a call option that people understand pretty well. Stocks bouncing up and down. Maybe today's price is $100.
Right.
And a call option gives you the right, but not the obligation to buy it at some other price. Any price.
It makes the offer irrevocable at whatever the strike price is, right? That's really what it does.
Oh, the offer is irrevocable, but you don't have to take them up on it.
Right.
So,
that's right.
You got it. You're going to, suppose IBM is selling for $100 today. I have no idea what it is. Suppose it's $100.
Closer to 150, but that's good.
Let's say 150 then. I'm fine with that if you actually know the price.
Right.
So you say to me, hey, Sam, I'll sell you an option to buy IBM from me for 155 in 1 month.
Right.
So 2 things are going to happen. IBM is below 155.
Right.
And I don't exercise the option. It's above 155. And suppose it's 160. Well, I say, oh, that's great. I buy it from you for 155, and I immediately turn it around and sell it on the market, because that's what it's selling for 160, and I made $5.
Right.
Okay.
Less whatever premium you paid for the actual.
Well. So here we go. So what should I have paid for the option?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, would I pay $5 for the option? Not a chance. Oh, but hold on a second. What if IBM had a chance to go to 1,000? Then $5 might be a bargain. So one of the things that comes out of this is that one of the pieces of data that goes into the Black-Scholes equation is the degree of uncertainty of the stock. Okay? Here's a good example. Today, pi is 3.14159 something. And you come to me and say, Sam, I'll sell you this option that pays off if pi is greater than 4. I don't care what you're selling it for.
Right.
I'm not buying it because there's no uncertainty in pi.
Right.
But if it turns out it's some physical experiment that might happen in a super collider, we don't really know, then you could sell me an option on, some constant of the universe being greater than 4. Okay. But the degree of uncertainty turns out to be a big driver of this option value. So this is the miracle of the Black-Scholes equation. You can go out and see what the prices of the options are in a world in which everyone knows the Black-Scholes equation. Economists are always doing this. They're inventing models, and then they're saying, well, let's go to a world in which everyone has my model.
Right.
That's going to impact their behavior.
Right.
This is how you get a Nobel Prize in economics, by the way. And it's well-deserved. It's like, here's a new way to think. Well, now that you're thinking that way, here's how you're going to behave. Now that you're behaving that way, I got a new piece of economics for you, right?
Right.
And the new piece of economics in the Black-Scholes equation is called implied volatility.
Right.
And that is, how do you measure how uncertain the stock is? You look at the option price. I'm looking at the option price on pi being greater than 4, and it's 0.
Right.
I'm looking at the option price of IBM being greater than 150 in a month. Well, you can look it up now, and it's probably online.
Right.
And IBM versus some other stock, the price will depend on the volatility. And suddenly Black-Scholes gave us a yardstick for volatility.
Opened up an entire industry. That opened up an entire
the
industry.
derivatives industry. A $1 trillion industry opened up very quickly. $1 trillion. Okay. So we had a nice big insurance industry going. People had lots of statistics. And then climate change came along, and it's quite rapid, folks. If you want to talk about the last, 500 years, things are happening rapidly enough so that we don't really have an efficient market. I mean, bad stuff is happening, right? How climate change could cause a home insurance meltdown. I'm not making this up, okay? Home insurers cut natural disasters from policies as climate risks grow. Right. Now, again, for those of your listeners who believe that climate change is a fraud, do I have a deal for you? Start a big company to offer low-cost flood insurance in Florida, low-cost fire insurance in California. You'll make a killing. And then once everyone realizes that it was just a fraud, you'll have cornered the market. Okay. So could publicly available libraries, I haven't talked about what we call this data. They're called stochastic libraries or SIP libraries.
Right.
Could publicly available SIP libraries do for the insurance market what sort of Black-Scholes did for the options market? It wouldn't be exactly the same, but it would help. And let's remember one thing. There are multiple climate models, and we're allowed to use them all. So when you look at the cone of uncertainty and the hurricanes in Florida you now live, oh, here's the European model, here's the US model, right? Well, neither of them have the damn thing going to Texas, do they? Right. There's some information right there. Okay, now I want to point out something really cool here that the discipline of probability management does. Now, the name that we are giving this entire initiative is Coherent Climate Calculus. Calculus is a Latin word meaning pebble because people used to count things with pebbles, right? And in fact, if you've had your teeth cleaned, you got a lot of calculus this time. Mm-hmm. That's the stony stuff on your teeth. Okay. So I want to describe what coherence buys us here. Let us take a climate change model. I'm talking strictly about sea level in this case. Mm-hmm. What I'm going to show you was not possible before probability management. Okay, so we have a giant model that's basically collapsing under its own weight. But it works. They're quite good. The climate scientists are no fools. They're working hard on this stuff. It's not just one model, it's many models. But what we care about, so you're modeling the flood, the sea level rise, okay? Right. Very complicated. But that's not what not where they start. Oh no, we have to model the economic impact this will have on the world. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's not so hard. What we do is to estimate the total impact, we have to build 500,000 coastal regions into our big model that's collapsing under its own weight. See, take a coastal region where you're in Tampa.
Yeah.
Well, how many feet? Well, let's start with the current sea level. How many feet before you flood the kindergarten? How many feet before you flood the post office? How many feet before you flood the airport? Well, you can put that in a table practically. Okay, it's not that simple though, is it? Oh no, you've got tidal properties that need to be modeled.
How did they pick 500,000, Sam, as opposed to 1 million or some other number?
Probably 1 billion. Yeah. What if it were 500,000? The beauty is that coherent climate calculus can model the risk at any scale. If I simulated 2 dice, I store 10,000 rolls of one die, 10,000 rolls of another die. If you want to know the simulation of the sum, add the first 2 rolls, add the second 2 rolls, add the third 2, down to the 10,000 rolls, add them together, and boom, that's the simulation of the sum. Now, going back to your...
So some observations here is we would expect New Orleans, given the history with Katrina, and given that it's sort of below sea level. I think the city is actually below sea level as it stands today, that we will have another situation like what occurred during the Bush presidency, where New Orleans or parts of it were wiped out. And we'll probably see the same thing in Staten Island, in New York.
How about Venice, for God's sakes?
Venice, and probably Los Angeles, and probably a number of other, Miami, a number of other coastal cities.
That's right.
Right? Where you could say, well, they're doing 500,000, but you could pick probably 50 of the most vulnerable cities, because that's when people are really going to have the wake-up call, right? The wake-up call only happens after the disaster. It's a little bit like nuclear war.
Yeah.
It's only after the strike happens that people realize, wow, we just wiped out 1 million people in Hiroshima, or whatever the number was, in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. That becomes very visceral and makes obvious your point that you started with, which is the P times L equation can have some dramatic impact. That's
and you're not going to see it. You're not going to see it based on the average.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, now we're not done quite. So because SIPs obey the laws of arithmetic, vector arithmetic.
Right.
We can do this. Someone says, remember, the original models, they run for days and days and days, right? Suppose we did actually. So I'm sure today when they do it, they don't put in 500,000 coastal regions, but they probably think, oh, well, let's sort of estimate North America and South America and, you know. But suppose after you've run the simulation, someone comes running up and says, oh, no, you forgot a region. Not a problem. Just one region. We forgot New Orleans. Well, okay, give them the flood SIP, run through the model. Or maybe New Orleans says, we saw the writing on the wall, right? And we built an incredible seawall. And so, in fact, put in the new Orleans and take out the old New Orleans. You can do that.
Right.
How long does that take? Oh, about a 10,000th of a second, because you're just doing vector arithmetic. You subtracted off the old one, you added in the new one. And this is just so dramatic. So you're not rerunning the simulation. So again, I get back to the flat dice. Now I want to show you something that is really kind of astonishing. Well, hold on. Does anybody care about this, by the way? Okay. The answer is yes. Doug Hubbard cares. He's written a book called The Failure of Risk Management, Why It's Broken and How to Fix It. Mm-hmm. Like, am I the first guy that noticed it's broken? No. And of course, I've written The Flaw of Averages, which also talks about, and my new book, Chanceification, talks about this. Let's talk about chance-informed risk management. Averages do not include anything about chance. With chance-informed risk management, you say, oh my God, in the second one, there's a chance of 1 million fatalities, just like even being aware of that. Okay, now here we have the flaw of averages enshrined in regulation. Are you shitting me? To quote Lewis Black for the third time? No, I'm not. I'm not. So this is from a draft wildfire mitigation plan. And they have this great layout of how we roll up wildfire risk. And we know that at the very bottom of this thing, you've got very capable wildfire scientists rolling dice like crazy.
Did they actually put the dice in the draft report, or did you add that?
No, I did that.
Oh, you did that. Okay.
No. If they'd known about this, they wouldn't have done that. No. Some of the people at this organization have seen the dice. Mm-hmm. So some of them understand.
Yeah.
I've shown them. But what we know is at the very top, we have flat dice. Single numbers are coming out.
Mm-hmm.
What single number are you going to use to represent that?
Yeah.
The average, 3.5. Maybe you pick another one. Maybe if you roll a 6, you get killed. Maybe we'll call it a 5 then to give it. No, nothing will ever work when you get to single numbers. And we don't know where in this process this occurs. There are people now among the regulators who recognize there really is an issue here. And I take you back to insurance and financial engineering. They've been doing it for years. Their damn railroad gauges were all different. They had their own internal railroads. They didn't care. With climate risk, it is one planet. We do need to have a common open standard for communicating it. And it is more complicated than die rolls, by the way. I'm using the die rolls as kind of a metaphor here, but it is more complicated than just that. So, what is the solution? It's these open standards for communicating the uncertainty. And that's, I love this model. This model is available out on our website. I should show you that.
Right. But Sam, you're really saying in many ways, the management thinking in government, in business, and insurance, and elsewhere has to start changing towards what might be called the more sophisticated way to look at.
They have to start using Hindu Arabic numerals. They are innumerate. They don't even know about Hindu Arabic numerals. These are people trying to do arithmetic who are asking what kind of pencil to buy.
Right.
There's a wonderful educational opportunity. But the beauty is, once they're educated, the technology is kind of ho-hum.
Yeah.
There's nothing we have to, this will be about as easy as Elon Musk's giant rocket. No, much easier. Much easier. No, we haven't established the next level of our standard, that'll take a bit of effort. This is what I want to get some funding for. Not a lot. We need an open workshop that includes people from the insurance companies, the climate simulators, some regulators, some end users like the Government Finance Officers Association. We got to get this information to you in a way that you can use them. And by the way, I'm at the climate change applications page of our website, and there's the model. You can download the model right now. This one, by the way, is set to 10,000 trials, so you might have to wait for a half a second. But
Right. So I jokingly said to you earlier today that Warren Buffett, running a big insurance company conglomerate, Berkshire Hathaway has various insurance companies under it. They should be all over. They should be all over this. They should be providing funding. They should be asking for consulting. They should be
Well, let's explore
people, right?
Let's explore that, Jack. Number one, they are probably doing it internally, right? Suppose I'm selling. What am I selling? All the tracks should be the same gauge. Mm-hmm. That's my game.
Yeah.
They've got giant internal railroads there. Do they want the tracks the same gauge? I think they should. But if you already have a railroad and it's kind of self-contained, where you don't need to send trains from Southern Pacific to Illinois Central, there are people there who would understand this in spades. And yes, I think they should want to fund us. And so should Aon, and so should Willis Tower Watson and their Core Logic. And by the way, we don't need a lot of funding to have a meeting.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people. We have a wonderful set of volunteers at the nonprofit. I would like to schedule a meeting for roughly, early next spring. And just kicking the idea around, Santa Cruz would be so perfect. Santa Cruz has floods. They have fires. They're around the corner from Pajero that had a gigantic dike. I mean, and but we need enough to get stuff published. We need to get the right parties in the room who all know what railroads are. And so I haven't told you exactly what we need to do at the next level of the standard, but I've talked to enough climate scientists, right, to know that they're all doing fairly similar things, and we will be able to make an open data standard that can talk to all of them. You
That's
still
huge.
get your internal whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because, it doesn't do Berkshire Hathaway or any separate insurance company any good to be successful if the entire economy blows up because the climate change causes such catastrophes.
Right.
There's no trading partners then. There's no need for
Right.
insurance. The world is ending. It's a little bit like...
In fact, let's be more concrete than that. Let's go back to State Farm and Allstate, who are no longer offering fire insurance in California.
Yeah.
What good does that do them?
Right.
So now the fact is that if we had these common models and had this common format, you might not want to pay the price that they now have to charge, but no one's going to say they're gouging you. It's the risk. This is what it is. You guys figure out how to manage the forest better or do whatever, or underground your power lines and we'll be back, or that'll lower the price of insurance to this. And that, by the way, see, the whole mitigation of this thing, you can underground power lines and reduce fire danger. It's very expensive.
Right.
But if you could show that people could then buy fire insurance again, they'd say, fine, I'll pay the surcharge.
Right.
Right?
Right. Let me just...
They know what they're getting for their money.
Right. Let me just say it's interesting because when you look at things like what the SEC is doing to publicly reported corporations, they're saying add to your thick document that no one except a few people ever read that gets filed every year more paragraphs about the effect of climate change on your business.
That no one will ever read.
No one will ever read, but it's all a bunch of textual boilerplate that doesn't communicate very well anyway. And as I said, I think there almost needs to be some sort of red, yellow, green light color coding, like when you go into a national forest area and they show you the fire risk and they say we're at the red level or what we did during the period that...
You got to be careful with that stuff. Got to be careful with that stuff because it's not quantitative enough.
Right.
But you can have a quantitative heat map.
Yeah.
In other words, if everybody knows that red, the probability just went from like 80% to 90%, and it should have the numbers on it. So,
right.
I'm good with colors as long as you associate the color with a quantitative measure.
I'm throwing that out. I'm throwing that out because there'll be now billions of dollars, legal, accounting, and otherwise, poured into this quote disclosure obligation, and it doesn't communicate anything.
So just a second. It's probably what it was designed to do. So let's go back to banking risk, okay? Mm-hmm. So you know the concept of regulatory capture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got a big bad thing happen, and we got to do banking regulation, and they're big companies that can help you pass the regulations. And how do they do it? You're looking at boilerplate. Oh no, I've seen pages and pages of like double integral signs and calculus. And what that is meant to say is you get close to this and you're going to start suffering PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So stay away. It stinks so bad, you don't want to get near it. And then no one looks. And technically speaking, you could say they dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and no one understood what they were doing. And there was a great article in the Wall Street Journal, I think shortly after the 2008 crash, no, it was New York Times maybe, is that with these risk management models in finance, some people didn't believe them at all. We're trying to put people on the boards of directors.
Right.
We need to get to the boards of directors with this thing, right? And some people said, oh no, we're good because we have a risk management department.
Mm-hmm.
Check. Do you have a risk management department? Yes. Check. Without having any idea what it means, right? It's like when you're driving your car. Does your car have a speedometer? Yes. Oh, well, great. Then you can drive however you want. No, you have to look at the damn speedometer and you have to know what it means.
Right.
Guess what?
It's like Sam Bankman-Fried said from jail, I guess. I guess the mistake I made was not having a chief risk officer. And people laughed because they said, you could have had a chief risk officer and done the same thing, and you'd be in the same muck that you're in now. And maybe you're saying, well, I needed a fall guy. I really needed a fall guy is what I really needed, right?
Yeah, oh, totally. So listen, let's talk about risk management for a second. The word risk itself is already brain dead. So go back to IBM. Suppose I bought a put option from you. So the put option says it's selling for 150. Okay. Hey, Jack, I want the right, but not the obligation to sell you IBM at 150, even if it goes down. Okay. So So is there a risk that IBM stock will go down? Heck no. The risk for me is that it goes up. If it goes down, I put it to you and I make a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. So right away, risk. There's not a risk that IBM goes down. Risk is in the eye of the beholder, always and always and always. Risk is a subjective thing. What is there? Let's take fire risk. Well, is there a risk of financial loss? Is there a risk of injury? Is there a risk that my power is out and my eggs go bad in my refrigerator? So Richard Feynman once said, if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't.
Right. Or you probably don't.
And I say, if you have a risk management department, you don't understand risk, because risk needs to be joined at the hip with opportunity. This is what Harry Markowitz told us. There's risk and return. They're tied together. Depends on your risk attitude. How much risk do you want to take? You can't have a separate risk management department. No. You need something holistic, right?
Right.
And that, of course, these stochastic libraries give it to you. And in fact, the people using them, well, insurance, very obviously, and they've done it, I think, for decades. And if Warren Buffett doesn't have people using stochastic libraries, I'll eat my hat. I mean, they must. But also, one of the places I saw it was a giant financial firm, Goldman Sachs, got all these derivatives, and so they make a huge coherent database. Coherent, yes. If IBM stock goes up, well, then anyone with an option on IBM has the stock going up on that trial.
Right. But right. Sam, I think the observation that comes out of all this is we probably have a lot more sophistication in the financial markets with interconnected risk under these Basel standards than we have in this climate change market, which is not even got the railroad track standardized.
Right. Totally. But it's worse than that because they're using averages. So let's go through the steps. The financial markets, number one, are very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been, I call this whole thing the chance age,
mm-hmm.
right? In the chance age, when the boss says, how deep is the river? You say, how deep do you want it to be? I'll tell you the chances, right?
Right.
And the other part of the chance age is, the uncertainty is stored in the data. So they call it modern finance. It entered the chance age in 1952 with Harry Markowitz and embraced it more and more. And then with options theory, they are chance age compliant. But they have big, efficient markets with a bazillion transactions, statistics coming out their ears.
Right.
The insurance markets were pretty efficient because they also had lots of houses they were insuring, lots of fires and everything. But climate change comes along and kind of derails the thing. And it's worse than having different gauge track. What they're giving, when you ask for something from one of these systems, they give you one of these.
Right.
It's not like they give you one of these and they're all different. They don't even try to give you this stuff, right? So if you are trying to measure the risk of your house somewhere, which is on stilts near something or other, and they say, well, on average, it's going to be 3.5 feet high, you don't care about that. You want to know the chance that it's 5 feet high because that wipes out your house on stilts. And so they're not even giving you chances. Now, the only way to give you chances, though, the right way to give you chances is in an open standard, we're all using the same gauge of track, or otherwise how is anyone going to understand what's going on? And that is where the nonprofit in establishing these standards, another really close analogy is like electricity wasn't of much use until we had the 60 cycle AC current standard.
Right. Hey, Sam, tell people how they can reach you, in particular Warren Buffett, because we need to get him on the line here. He's got some extra money. He's going to be giving it away. He's in his 90s. He's got to start giving it away. I think he's giving it away.
I would love it. One of the things you can do, we're called probabilitymanagement.org, okay?
That's easy.
But what I tell people is, I am the self-proclaimed father of the chance age, and I have the receipts. It's a receipt from GoDaddy for $12.17, includes fees and taxes, to buy chanceage.com.
You got to make sure that chanceage.com gets renewed for the next 100 years.
Oh yeah.
Ain't going away, right?
Of course. So, I must say, I've met a lot of inspiring people over the years, but I got to say, George Santos has really had an effect on me, in spite of the fact that he hasn't claimed to be author of either of my books. So I have this George Santos game where I come up with the most bombastic thing I can think of and then immediately deliver the receipt. So I am father of the chance age. And by the way, this is maybe a quick way to get to me. Type in chanceage.com and you will see my portrait here. This is my self-portrait.
I like that, Sam. It's your trademark.
But this was a lot of work to make, by the way.
Well, you're the thinker. You're the thinker with the die in.
So we definitely need help because most people have no idea what we're talking about. Warren Buffett would understand, and we don't need a lot of support to make this happen. And in particular, what's happening now, remember that first slide, all these people, oh my God, Aon, First Street, Vibrant Planet, GFOA. There are so many of us, let alone all the people who need the insurance stuff, right? This is a pressing, urgent need. And as I mentioned, it will take a consortium to extend this properly into the climate regime.
Right.
Okay. I know we can do it. The math is not that hard, but you got to get agreement to get a standard. People have to sit around and agree on the standard.
Right.
Right.
Well, thank you, Sam, for your time. I think you explained it in a very robust way. We used the time well. And hopefully I'll see you next week. I'm going to be out in California and I'll make sure we make some plans to get together because I'm giving a presentation at Stanford
Wonderful.
And I'll make sure you get an invite and your lovely wife gets an invite, and maybe we'll
Thanks
get a lunch
so
or dinner.
much.
All right.
And will your lovely wife lead me along with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Give her my best.
All right. Talk to you later, Sam. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.